Former Fort Worth police officer Aaron Dean testified in his trial for killing a Tatiana Jefferson in her mother's home.
And he told the jury he thought the house was burglarized. He claims he found himself staring down the barrel of a gun. Prosecutors worked to break down his version of events. He admitted some of his decisions were, quote, bad police work. He also admitted he did not announce he saw a gun before he fired, and he failed to tell his partner that he saw a gun when they went into the home. He also failed to render life-saving aid to Jefferson before other officers arrived. Fox 4's Macy Jenkins joins us now live from Fort Worth with more on today's testimony. Macy.
Well, hi, Heather and Steve. Today marks 3 years and 2 months since Dean shot a Tatiana Jefferson inside of her mother's home. Well, today we finally heard his account of how things happened that night. He spent about 4 hours on the stand, and at one point he was almost in tears as he described the moment Jefferson fell to the ground after he shot her.
I see a kid, of course it's, we know it's Zion, and I'm thinking, who brings a kid to a burglary? What is going on?
An emotional Aaron Dean takes the stand in his own defense on Monday. His testimony, a step-by-step account of his actions on October 12, 2019, from the moment he responded to that open structure call at a Tatiana Jefferson's house. He says he and fellow officer Carol Darch approached the open front and side doors.
It looked like items had been pulled out. It looked like someone had gone through the cabinets and the drawers looking for valuables to steal.
What was going through your mind at this point?
That we had a possible burglary at that time.
Dean says they moved along the side of the home, quickly checked 2 vehicles and the detached garage before opening the backyard gate and approaching a window.
As I looked through that window, low in the window, I observed a person. Couldn't tell black, white, male, female.
He testified that what looked like the silhouette of a person was very close to the window.
I saw the silhouette again, and I was shouting at this time, shouting commands. Put up your hands. Show me your hands. Show me your hands. And as I started to get that second phrase out, show me your hands, I saw the silhouette. I was looking right down the barrel of a gun. And when I saw the barrel of that gun pointed at me, and I fired a single shot from my duty weapon, and immediately had the flash from the muzzle reflecting off the window, and of course, as my weapon recoiled, the light was bouncing back in my face, so I couldn't see. When my vision cleared, then I observed the person that we now know as Miss Jefferson. I heard her scream and saw her fall like this. And I knew that I'd shot that person.
He added that police are not trained to wait when presented with deadly force. Then, during an aggressive cross-examination, prosecutor Dale Smith took his own chronological approach to Dean's steps that night, but grilled him about several moments where he says Dean failed to follow his police training.
How smart is it to shoot a gun at a target without knowing what's behind the target?
I took a well-aimed shot with ammunition that's designed not to overpenetrate.
How smart is it to take a shot at a target without knowing what's behind the target?
It's not.
You're trained against that, aren't you?
Yes.
Smith, referring to Dean's testimony that he thought a burglary was in progress, questioned Dean about his next move.
You tried to open the window to get inside a house where you didn't know where unknown assailants could be hiding that could be armed. Is that what you're telling this jury?
Yes.
That's your sworn test. Is that good police work?
No.
Good police work, something Smith got Dean to admit repeatedly he was lacking in his actions from that night. Smith pointed out that Dean never told his partner anything about a gun until after they were inside of the home and saw the weapon, and that he also let Officer Darch go inside of the home while Dean again said he thought a burglary could be in progress that could have included others with weapons in the home.
Did you tell her there was a gun?
I did not.
Is that good police work?
No.
That's more bad police work, is it?
Yes.
It's more bad police work, isn't it?
It's not the best. There's probably things I could have done better.
Prosecutors argued that Dean's decision against announcing his presence as a Fort Worth police officer contradicts his decision to use a flashlight, which could have been seen by anyone in the house.
All this other stuff that you didn't want to announce your presence, that's when you decide to announce your presence. Right then, through that back window, in someone's own backyard, in a private citizen's backyard, through a gate that was shut, back there through a window. Now's finally when you decide to announce your presence.
Because I thought we had a burglary.
And you didn't announce your presence with Fort Worth PD, did you? You just used your flashlight, correct?
No, I just used my flashlight.
And whoever was in that house had no idea, did they?
I don't know.
Before he left the stand, the prosecution asked Dean to grade himself from A to F on the job he did as an officer that night 3 years ago.
Probably a B.
Oh, B. High passing grade. What do you think you did the best?
Not sure.
You gave yourself a B and you can't tell this jury what you did the best, not a minute and 17 seconds?
Now, after Dean testified, the defense called a forensic video analyst to the stand. Now, he testified that the Dean could see more than the body camera actually showed. But there was a key moment during that cross-examination when the defense witness was asked about how quickly Dean fired towards Jefferson before or while he was starting to tell her to put her hands up. That expert witness said it was just about a half a second. Now, the defense will continue to present its argument tomorrow. I'll send it back to you, Heather and Steve.
All right, Macy, thank you. And be sure to stay with Fox 4 News as the Aaron Dean murder trial continues. You can watch the trial streaming live on fox4news.com and on our Fox 4 YouTube page. Also on our website, you can find an interactive timeline of this case.